today we turn our attention to a topic that resonates deeply with the spirit of the season, Christmas as a season of peace, what it means for national unity. Now, Christmas celebrated around the world is a time of joy, reflection, and togetherness. Beyond the gifts, decorations, and festivities, it is a season that calls on us to embrace peace, extend goodwill, and foster understanding among families, communities, and nations. It reminds us of the values of compassion, forgiveness, and unity, values that are essential for building stronger, more harmonious societies. Now, joining us today to shed a light, on this is Dr. Prince Godfrey Omola, the senior pastor of John Center International in Abuja. He's also an advisor to the PFN chairman on policy matters and intergovernmental relations. With his wealth of experience in faith, leadership, and national dialogue, Dr. Omola will help us explore how the lessons of Christmas can guide us towards greater national unity, tolerance, and mutual respect across Nigeria, and we'll also discuss how faith, traditions, and the spirit of the season can be powerful tools for peace, and what practical steps citizens and leaders can take to translate the ideas of Christmas into everyday life. Merry Christmas, Pastor Omola. I hope I got your surname correctly.
Yes, thank you
for coming.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, to begin this discussion, could you explain what Christmas truly represents? I mean, beyond the festivities, and also how do the core values of Christmas, which is peace, compassion, and forgiveness, should relate to our lives as citizens in a diverse nation like Nigeria?
Thank you. Very important question, and I love the way you have put it. Beyond the festivities, I would like to really talk more on the significance of the birth of Christ. Because Christmas is celebrated today world over to mark the birth of Jesus Christ, as it were. And the birth of Jesus Christ typifies peace and reconciliation. The word reconciliation is one of the words I would like to emphasize, because the birth of Jesus is the fulfillment of God's promises to save man, from sin, and to reconcile man to himself, and to reconcile man to one another. So when you are talking about Christmas, you are talking about, remembering when Jesus Christ was born to bring peace and reconciliation and coexistence to humanity. And so in this time, we reflect the lesson of when God reconciled man to himself and man to man because of the past mistrust, that took place in the disobedience of Adam and Eve. They blame each other. And if you look at our nation today, when we celebrate Christmas, it is the time to reflect on peaceful coexistence. Now, let me emphasize two verses here. Luke 2:10 and 14. The day that Jesus Christ was born, they were shepherds according to records in the field. An angel appeared to them, and the angel said, "Don't be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy to all people." So the birth of Christ, first of all, is for every humanity, irrespective of your beliefs, your religion, your tribe, your culture. The good news is to all. And verse 14 tells us that when the heavenly hosts joined them, they say, "Glory to God in the highest. On earth, peace and goodwill toward men."
All right.
This is very, very important. So this is the meaning of Christmas, a time of peace and reconciliation between God and man to one another. When I use the term man, I mean humanity, male and female.
Okay. All right. Now, Dr. Omola, you just emphasized that Christmas is often described as a season of peace. Now, in a country like Nigeria, what kind of peace does Christmas truly invite with the way Nigeria is set up, with the way our people are, and, a melting pot that it is? So does it invite inner peace, social harmony, or political calm at this point?
Okay, so very interesting question. Peace starts in the heart. You cannot give what you do not have. So the receipt of Jesus into your heart, first of all, as the Prince of Peace, establish you in peace. And anyone who has peace, we want peaceful coexistence with neighbor, with community, and with the nations. That's where it starts, first of all. Peace in the heart. And then whatever is inside always find expression to the outside. So first of all, it's a time to reflect. Do you have peace in your heart? And then you become an agent of peace to others in the celebration of Christmas. And so it blurs the dividing line, actually. In a nation like ours. Yes, it talks about, like you rightly mentioned, if we of all tribes, religion, culture, are peaceful people, then naturally it will manifest in our relationship with one another, either religious or political. So let me be quick to say this, that because it's a time of peace, so if God is extending peace to us, then we necessarily, who have established our life in peace, must show peace, must reflect peace. So my character is actually who I am. The expression of my behavior, of my relationship, of my values. So if I'm a man of peace, naturally, my interaction with you will be peaceful. So in the first place, whether political or religious, we humans were not created by God, to be animalistic towards one another in the first place. Absolutely. In the first place. So when you talk about lack of cohesion, something is missing. Humans were created to coexist. And the diversity globally today has become strength. Population, diversity is to be harnessed for strength, not something that causes segregation, and separatists, as it were. So yes, peace of mind, but it's reflective in the life that we live.
All right,
in our association. Thank you.
All right, Doctor, earlier on, we opened the phone lines to our viewers, to get their views on how Christmas was being celebrated then and now, just to get an understanding if certain cultures have, faded off. So do you think that modern lifestyles, urbanization, and also social changes have weakened the spirit of togetherness during Christmas? And also, how can we revive it? And what other practical steps can families, religious leaders, and also community leaders take to use the festive season as a time to bridge divisions and also foster dialogue?
Okay, very interesting question as it is. The first point I want to make is that we grow with values. We grow with values. Yes, urbanization, technology, and the development of the world, the social, cleavages, times are changing. But you see, what must be long-lasting is the issue of value. And values are inculcated. So if we inculcate the value of peace, reconciliation, for example, in period like this for Christmas, at the family unit, we should not be fighting. At the family unit, there should be no reason for abuse. There should be no reason, for animosity towards one another. So we pass on the values. If I have children, what value am I passing down? And so movement from one place to the other will not change the value by which we live. So that is very, very important in all that we do. And then as colleagues in the office, what kind of behavioral attitude do we demonstrate? Are we always the one to be first to call for reconciliation where there is misunderstanding? Or we fan to flame where there is confusion or lack of cohesion? So these are very, very important. So why urbanization? You cannot stop the advance of technology and the change in time. But what we can sustain is value. And values are passed from generation to generation. And I think one of the things that is affecting our society and our time, is that people tend to want the issue of trend, like social media, and influence of peers, but we must try to reorientate the society, the young ones, our mind, to be peace-loving, to be forgiving, because Christ represents forgiveness. And so, if we have had conflict, either among communities, it's time for reconciliation.
All right. Now, Doctor, we have to be open, or our eyes have to be open to the current realities in Nigeria. Now, we have regions that are affected by violence and displacement. So what does Christmas peace realistically look like to those people, and how can they be able to move forth and be part of the celebration of Christmas as well?
Okay, thank you. Very, very pointed question, as it were. Let me start by saying that our circumstances really does not many times define God's position towards us. And so the people who are displaced, we need to make concerted effort to reach them with the message of hope and peace. I'm aware too, like you rightly pointed out, that there are certain region of the country where there are people in IDP camps. For instance, we could go to officiate Christmas service for them. Yesterday, sorry, this is not planned. We went on visitation to the hospital in Abuja here, just to express the love of Christ. God is not seen with the physical eyes by anybody, but we can communicate his compassion. We can communicate his value. We can pass down his love to people through our actions. So those who are displaced, we can reach them and express the love of God, the peace and reconciliation. And above all, when people have suffered hurt, they carry hurt. When they have suffered setback, they have suffered, crisis, their temper, is very short, and you can always lose by virtue of the trauma. So this is the time to preach forgiveness and hope, that God is present with you and you can make it through this trying time.
But Pastor, in preaching these peace values and morals to people, I mean, some critics have argued that some of these religious messages sometimes stay at the pulpit level. Now, how can churches and faith institutions move from preaching peace to actively building it in communities?
Very important question. Faith without work is dead. It is not true that peace, reconciliation is just pulpit oriented. I just mentioned by passing, I led a team from our church to visit hospital, and we took handouts to tell sick people God is with you, And so There are bodies that we can create. PFN, for instance, is a structure that is peace-oriented. Okay. And the current administration, is putting structures in place for the expression of peace and reconciliation. In fact, my chairman, Apostle Israel Abam, when he was sworn in on the 20th of September, took a familiarization visit to the entire, FCT to reconcile people and say, let's build together, let's revamp, our common values, what hold us together, and so on and so forth. And we can also, I can speak personally, in the effort that churches can make. At this time, we don't only preach peace, we express peace. Peace can be lived as a lifestyle, and so we can build system, we can build cohesion, we can build understanding towards giving to people, especially the needy. We can appeal to people to live in peace, and we can identify communities that are in need and take things to them.
And Doctor, we know that it is quite important to have shared values beyond religion. Now, at this point, what lessons from Christmas narrative, especially when it comes to peace, generosity, forgiveness, sacrifice, and things like that, those values, how can they be applied to leadership, governance, and citizenship in Nigeria?
Leaders are among us. Leaders are people. Where our leaders are encouraged to imbibe the value of peace and reconciliation. And at this time, our various representatives, either the president of the country, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, just a message of peace and reconciliation, like I saw on your reported yesterday from Trust TV, goes a long way to show that this is a government of peace, government of reconciliation, government that have the security of people in mind. We can also downstream that to the vice president's outing, the Senate president, the senators, and the representatives. Because leaders, when leaders lead, people voluntarily, people willingly follow. So the place of leadership in national reconciliation, in national cohesion, has to be demonstrated by our political leaders, and it will go a long way because it becomes a pattern of leadership for the country, and everyone will follow. So it is very, very important. And the representatives of various constituencies, in particular, I know in Nigeria, our politicians from time to time, take goodies, in our local palace, like when we had the COVID-19 palliative, as it were. So we are a nation that our politicians are used to, showing compassion and showing the spirit of giving back to society, by taking food stuff, or whatever to put a borehole or provide infrastructure for community. And this is a time for such things to be done, to revamp the hope of the people in governance.
Well, talking about hope for the people and the future of the people, each time we talk about the future, we always bring the youth in it, because up till now, they still say that the youth are the future of tomorrow. So we were going to bring them in, and looking at the fact that, they have their frustrations as to how the economy is going, the unemployment is, staring them there. I mean, how can the Christmas message of hope speak meaningfully to a generation dealing with, all of this, with unemployment, insecurity, and uncertainty for the future, since we're talking about hope, peace, love for the future?
Thank you very much to the youth. I am youth-focused, youth-oriented, and as a youth coach, let me start by saying that there is hope for the youth of Nigeria, and there is hope for the future. But I would like to also advise, youthful exuberance intoxicates. Our values towards the youth should be reorientated. I was once a youth, an undergraduate student. I used to think like the world is at my feet. But when you grow, you discover that what really sustains you is values and principles of life. Because when you grow up, you realize that life is not what you think it was as a youth. And I'm sure you can all bear witness to that. So our youth need to be given the required attention, to inculcate value into them, and then opportunities for training. Look, the world that we live today is one of the most opportune time ever in the history of humanity. By virtue of the development of technology, our youth can develop various skills for the advance of their life and their future. Permit me, because we are talking about youth, the explosion of technology, for example, AI today. If you had developed your skill in AI, you can sit in the comfort of your heart and provide services to different nations or different corporations, as it were. So our youth need to spend time to develop their skill, to educate their mind, and shift from the fallacy of making it quick. Making it quick. Our youth are very hasty thinking. And when they see people who are well accomplished, they don't understand the process. They don't understand the time. They don't understand the effort. They don't understand the work that have been put in. Like it's popularly saying, all that glitters
is not gold.
Is not gold. Even the gold that glitters goes through purification, through fire. It's the end of the process that you see the glittering. So our youth, there is hope, but the process require work, require development of your skill, require education, very, very important, education. And so there are opportunities. One of my leaders in those days, this is a very good advice that he gave me. When I graduated, I served at the National Assembly, before the job came. He was a Nigerian ambassador to Switzerland. So he came home and I went to visit him. He said, Prince, how are you? What are you doing? I said, I'm looking for a job. I was shocked with his advice. He said, don't look for a job. Develop yourself. Get more education. Job will come looking for you. I tell you, that is one of the best advices I've ever got. I sat down and said, this guy has a PhD. This is a Nigerian ambassador. He must know what he's talking about. And I went back for more studies, as it were. So, develop yourself, hone your skill, job will come looking for you.
All right, Doctor, quickly before we wrap up, when the decorations come down and the season passes, what should remain of Christmas in the Nigerian spirit? And how do we hold ourselves accountable for it?
Thank you. I think Christmas, or the birth of Christ, as it were, is not an occasion for ceremony. It's a lifestyle. So we are talking about peace and reconciliation. that becomes the continuum of our life going forward. You know, so we don't want to talk about peace, coexistence, exchange of gifts, an idea. That has to become our lifestyle. You know, so whatever activity we define, develop for the expression of the commemoration of the birth of Christ becomes our lifestyle going forward. If politicians reconcile now, we don't want to start fighting by the new year. You understand? So we build value that lasts. You know, so as we pass through the celebration, you know, naturally, when time passes into the new year, you know, the beautiful decoration, they wane, people remove them, but it gives room for continuous reflection and the values of reconciliation, the values of peace, the value of coexistence, you know, that we have rehearsed, you know, that we have talked about, that we have gathered about, the hug that we had. We want to continue. The cheers that we had, we want to continue after the ceremony.
All right, thank you, Dr. Prince Godfrey Omola, the Senior Pastor of John Center International in Abuja. Thank you for speaking with us this morning, and once again, Merry Christmas.